This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Onryo? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friends, Jake, Josh, and Ryan on with me, and we're talking about the sensation Blue Eye Samurai Season 1 out on Netflix, kind of the end of 2023. We watched it, and I'm just gonna, I guess, spoil it right here and say I think it's worth the hype. It was really good.
Oh yeah, definitely worth the hype.
Steven, you spoiled it when you said it was sensational. You called it sensational in
You
your
called it
opening.
a
I think-
sensation.
I said the sensation, so still a little unclear. Like a
okay.
sensation could be overrated.
Okay. Well,
Like
glad we
Fourth
kept
Wing
the
is a
suspense for a little
sensation.
bit longer.
Is it
Yeah.
sensational? No.
Yes.
No, it is not.
Good example.
Can I agree with Steven? I thought it was also sensational, even though he didn't say that. I thought it was sensational too. It was great. Fantastic. 2 thumbs up. But
Yeah.
Nice.
a lot of adult content. I'm doing a little, but I mean,
I like how it's blurring in between your fingers when you do that. Go smaller again. There. Maybe it was just because it's outside. There you go. Yeah, right there.
Mm.
Anyways,
I
for
just
you
want that-
video
I just want that
watchers,
GIF now.
As a-
Ryan going like,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely 2 thumbs up. Definitely a lot of content. I first started watching this. I heard great things, and I was at my mother-in-law's with my brother-in-law watching it, and we quickly realized this was not a show for my mother-in-law's living room.
wait, in the living room, like on the TV or like on the phone?
yeah.
On the TV.
On the TV. That's how you watch TV
Wow.
together, man.
Jake, man, that is
I
bold.
didn't check the content rating. So check it.
Check it.
Yeah. Check it. Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. It was great. I think that none of us have super big anime bona fides, however you say that term.
bona fides.
Yeah. Like I think we're trying to get into it outside of Fantology. Like me and Jake and Ryan with some of our other friends are doing like a watch through of like that are way more into anime are doing like a watch through Full Metal Alchemist. Anyway, we're trying, like I'm personally trying to become more become
Cultured.
more cultured and just open to this this way of telling stories. Well, no, because for me, I've always struggled with quote unquote traditional anime, kind of like the Dragon Ball, the like I ended up really liking Avatar, which I know a lot of people say is an anime, but like a lot of those anime that have really like the
You didn't grow up
strong
on
in your face-
Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And
I did. I grew up on Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, but quickly like I grew up on them and then stopped watching them when
Considered
I was
them childish.
11.
When you were a child,
Kinda,
you enjoyed
yeah.
childish things.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now
I
that
mean,
you are a man. Yeah.
I don't want to call these things childish because like I know a lot of people really like them and like
But that is the stigma it gets in general, right? But I would say Blue-Eyed Samurai is nothing along those lines.
well, that's what I kind of struggle with because I see anime like Blue-Eyed Samurai and other things like I know again like Invincible isn't really anime, but it kind of has.
I don't
like,
think
similar.
Blue-Eyed Samurai would be considered anime either.
I just want to
it
be
not?
clear,
No,
guys.
Uh,
It's Blue Eye Samurai.
I always
not
say eyed.
blue-eyed.
That's my bad.
Yeah, the
Anyway.
listeners are gonna get mad at us, so I just gotta say it at least once. We'll make the mistake again, but comment in the
Well,
comments.
I'm over here completely like messing up genres of things.
Yeah, and
but-
I'm upset about an extra D, but yeah, go ahead.
But yeah,
Okay.
Anyway.
You're correct, Jake. I would say this show is anime inspired
Yeah.
or influenced.
Similar to
And-
Avatar in that
and
respect.
I think I fall a lot in line with Josh in that I've struggled to get into like traditional anime. I've tried to watch them a few times and I don't know, it's just not, it hasn't really been my thing. But like the westernized anime, I guess I'll call them, like that aren't really like traditional anime, like Avatar and Blue Eye Samurai. Those are the only ones off the top of my head that I've watched. Those are great. So I don't know. Maybe I'm trying
I
to
think
put my
it's
finger on what exactly about the traditional format that I don't like.
I think it's the specific type of anime that as Americans we've been exposed to, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragon Ball and even Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and things like that, where there's like more of a silly aspect to it. But if you watch other anime like Ghost in the Shell or Studio Ghibli or Akira, like those are
I like
like
Studio
really
Ghibli.
different. Those are just
Yeah.
really different vibes than those like.
But like I watched like Death Note, but it was pretty similar to like Full Metal, where you know it's just pretty silly a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I tried watching a little bit um of geez, One Piece, and it was very similar.
yeah,
So,
which I'm saying like that is like
yeah.
there's just obviously a wide spectrum of like
Well,
genres
and
within
yeah,
it.
and I'm
And
going like the most popular ones, which are
yeah,
maybe the ones that have those type of aspects. But still, I still haven't. Anyway, this is all kind of really not germane to because we were here to talk about Blue Eye Samurai, and it's like
which isn't anime, but
great
it's
show.
adjacent to it, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so having established whatever credentials were established and all of that, we we liked the show, and I think one cool thing about it, we'll get into just kind of an overview. It's written by a husband and wife team. That's kind of just a fun little trivia
I
nugget in
didn't
the
know that.
background. Yeah. So who would like this? Who do we recommend this to?
I think
Um,
people like us who have grown up enjoying things like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and or maybe have been exposed to Dragon Ball Z, or I don't know. I grew up watching things like that and Samurai Jack, which is an anime.
yeah, Samurai Jack.
Played a lot of Pokemon.
So open to stories told through an anime or comic medium rather than, just requiring live actors. I think obviously that's
Sure.
going to be required. But then like anyone who wants a good story, because
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
you
it's just
when you get
yeah.
past the whole anime thing that we've focused on so far, the story is really fantastic, great characters, really cool action scenes. The animation
Yeah.
itself is done really well.
And the
I think-
choreography of all the fight scenes, spectacular.
I think making sure that the person is okay with a lot of violence,
Yeah.
and the other adult aspects of the show, like I think that is a kind of a niche. A lot of people are just turned off by like extreme violence, which is like
Yeah.
an aspect of the show a lot. Like it's like hyper stylized violence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Like
it-
Tarantino is it's like an animated Tarantino
or like yeah.
in
Exactly.
terms not in terms of like the wittiness and like
the dialogue, yeah,
dialogue,
it's not-
but just in terms of like the stylized violence.
100%, yeah. And it's like violence and the way that violence is committed is like a key part of the story, or kind of like John Wick almost, where
Yeah, John
it's
Wick.
like
Yeah. Probably
or
more
like Kill
similar to John
Bill.
Wick than Tarantino.
Yeah, but like some of these are just like you have to be okay with like elements of the story being told through violence and the way that violence is committed and the way that characters interact with violence and death.
Yeah, for sure. If you were to edit those aspects out of the show, you'd still have a good story, but the storytelling would be hindered.
Yeah, there's at least 2 episodes that basically span an entire fight with some other storytelling methods mixed in. So that would be, you wouldn't be able to unravel it without that element.
Yeah. Also, anyone who's a sucker for a good revenge story,
Yeah.
I think if you're into Count of Monte Cristo, Best Served Cold, Django Unchained, to refer back to some Tarantino.
I read Abercrombie's year end of 2023 blog post, and he said this was a show that he really liked, and something like, who knew that I would have gone for a show with a strong female lead revenge story.
That's funny. George R.R. Martin also wrote about Blue Eye Samurai and how it was his favorite I think favorite TV show of 2023. So if you're into fantasy, turns out you're into this. There aren't many like
which is weird because it's not really fantastic.
Yeah. I've seen some debates online about whether the main character is an onryo or not, or however you pronounce that. But mostly
Yeah, it
when
definitely wouldn't surprise
Mhm.
me if there is fantastical
Yeah.
elements more introduced later on.
But it takes place
Also,
in like 1600s Japan, kind of
yeah,
in the backdrop of real history, but nothing that happens is actual real history. Like one of the episodes has a big fire in Edo, which is Tokyo, and there was a big fire that year, but it was not, did not play out in the way that you actually saw on the screen. So, like in that sense, it's not
yeah,
fantasy. It's like historical fiction.
fiction,
I guess
yeah.
I'd say is the closest.
And I think historically, to give like a rundown of the plot, like four Englishmen are being hunted down by the main character, and historically it wouldn't be the English, it would be the Portuguese who
Mm.
had established
Who were in Japan at that
were
time.
in
Well,
Japan. Yeah,
do we know all of them as being? I guess they're all white because
I
they
mean they're
might.
all European.
They're
Yeah,
all
Yeah,
European.
but it
I
seemed, yeah, it's go ahead.
I read a little bit like Dutch traders would have been allowed at the time,
Yeah,
but no one else. So I mean, sure, like the story could have happened, and there was like actually kind of tales of a samurai that was half white, half Japanese, and so it's kind of like
yeah,
based on stuff that like sure like could have happened, but it's obviously a made up
yeah.
story.
But it's not like you're basing it off of a historical figure or anything like
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
yeah. Um,
So that said, let's talk about the show a little bit more, some specific plot details. So if you haven't watched it, go check it out. We recommend it. It was sensational, according to Ryan.
I think the violence is sensational, but if you like
All
that.
right. So what were some favorite standout parts or characters, or just like what comes to your mind when you look back on the show?
I loved everything with the sword maker and the
Sword
aspects
father.
of like forging the katanas that went into it, and kind of how it's symbolic of the Blue Eye Samurai, Mizu, is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how it's symbolic of her. And I loved I watched the English, I mean, I was gonna say the English dub version, but it is in English, so it's not considered dubbed. But I loved the voice actor of the sword maker, and so I don't know, that I thought his whole character was great.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with the sword maker, like talking about the prejudice and the like what it would be like to be someone of um mixed race like in Japan at that time, and just in general. Like I think that was a really good way to encapsulate those themes and like characterization of Mizu.
Yeah, the backstory really kind of kept it together as we went through the story. I think it doled out more information at the right time. It kind of had like a Starlight Archive feel to it a little bit, where present day, past. Obviously, that's not unique to Starlight Archive, but that just came to mind at the moment.
Yeah, like there's one episode. How many, like, what are we doing with spoilers here?
We're just talking about the show. Go for it.
Just
So
okay.
all spoilers.
All
Yeah.
spoilers. All right, the brothel fight scene episode where you get flashback to her having been married previously, like that was like out of left field, but also done in such a way that like it fit her character, you know? Like I didn't expect her to have ever been married before, and then all of a sudden you
Right.
find out she was, and you're like trying to figure out like what happened, and then anyways, super well done with those flashbacks, similar to Stormlight that way.
I mean, before that, I wasn't certain, like almost like whether she was capable of romantic love.
Same, yeah, yeah,
So it was, I thought like that was, it added an interesting depth to the character that, before that point, I guess, before that point, you just really had no idea that that was there. And then I think after that was introduced, you started to see more and more hints of who she was in her past.
And it helped add more flavor to the whole part of her character that was so fixated on the revenge. And kind of up till that point, you thought, oh, this story could turn and kind of become more of a redemption for Mizu type thing, or like maybe she gets off the revenge and goes off on something else. But I think that really legitimized the decision to have her be completely focused on vengeance and like nothing else at this point.
Yeah, because she basically like given it her all to have a normal life.
Right. Like she had already made that attempt at the peaceful arc. And so now it makes more sense for her to not
be
try
fully
again.
Committed and double down on it. Yeah. While at the same time, she had a good growth arc too. Like I think they did a really good job of showing it wasn't a 180 like a Count of Monte Cristo or something like that. In terms of like I don't know, full on goals, but there was definitely growth to it. And then the ending, like, I mean, I don't know if we should skip to the end, but just speaking of character growth, the way it ends with her sailing to London with Fowler, like, I feel like that was an intriguing way to show like almost a regression, of growth.
Yeah.
It's like on one hand, she didn't kill him, and maybe you could see growth that way, but on the other hand, she somehow believed him and is going to London with him. She thinks that's the right way to go. Anyways.
Right.
Kind of shows maybe in certain ways she's a little naive, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you could ever trust Abijah Fowler to help you out in any way and not double cross you.
Especially going like, not to the seat of his power, because he obviously doesn't own London, but you're basically taking the fight to his turf that you've never been to before. And it also happens to be, the capital of the world at the time and full of stuff that you have no idea how to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure she'll be, quite capable, I'm assuming. Assuming she makes it to London. I don't even know. Like, do you think they're really gonna uproot season 2 and put it all the way out in London after establishing Japan? So the other characters are also gonna go? Because like you can't.
No,
I don't think you can separate
split
them the whole time.
I think they'll split. I think they'll show Akemi's machinations. I think that'll be
Akemi will rise to power, take over Japan, and there will be a huge Mizu in London versus Akemi in Japan battle.
Yeah,
that would be bad. That would be a bad story. I don't want that.
I don't understand how the show is able to like make almost every fight scene better than the last. Like the end of episode 1 fighting Taigen, like that was such a cool like intro to the fighting, the choreography. But then you get the brothel fight, and then you get the storming the tower fight. That whole montage, that was very Samurai Jack-esque to me, where it's like feeling supernatural because she's drugged and like all these traps, and it was so cool.
You left out the fight with the 4 fangs.
Oh yeah, the fight with the 4 fangs
which
too,
was
on the
also
cliffside.
Which was also cool because she fought the guy with the broken blade that she had forged.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had stolen.
I like that. I feel like feels like anime in terms of story writing. How in the flashbacks you hear him laugh, and he always laughs the same way, and it's kind of weird. But then you realize, oh, they're doing this so that way, like he has a tell later on. I liked that. That was fun. But the fights were so cool.
So from those 4, well, maybe we said more than 4. From those options, which fight was your favorite?
Probably storming the tower. It was just so intense.
That one was stressful because she was getting injured as she went, and like, I don't know. I feel like every time a character gets injured in the way that she did, like she should have been laid up in bed for a week, but she presses on, and it's just really stressful because you're like, no way can she continue in this state, but she does, which You kind of have to suspend disbelief a bit,
Yeah.
but it also adds to the tension.
She got that
Right.
Onryo in her. That's why.
Yeah.
Ryan, I feel like the storming the tower kind of reminded me of like Cradle fight scenes a little bit. Of like, you know, a pretty simple goal, and then just like he has to push through like one boss after the next, kind of.
Yeah, and it's kind of like what Steven says, almost to the point of disbelief, where you're like, this character has, you know, been injured, like they haven't healed, and then, you know, the next scene they're back on their feet moving forward, and you're like, well, yeah, you know, you just kind of have to go with the story
There
sometimes.
must have been some kind of healing in those psychedelics as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely ride that line of like she's doing too much. And I haven't heard anyone accuse her of being a Mary Sue, which I think like is fair to discuss, but at the same time the way the story is done, I think it's pulled off where you don't feel that way. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
No, because she actually gets beat up. Like that's the thing, is she actually takes
Yeah,
beatings.
but she takes like what would be mortal wounds, you know, and
Yeah,
And takes
but
on
yeah.
40 to 50,
compared
you know,
to
pretty
other people.
trained fighters at once.
Yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah, but it feels earned though. Oh, go ahead.
It
Ryan.
does feel earned, yeah.
Well,
It does.
I felt like that is, you know, part of the anime influence, is that
Mhm.
you really play with the power level of the main character sometimes, in
Yeah.
which it's like at times they can take on 40 different guards and then like keep on running. At other times it's like two people walk up behind, sneak up behind the main character and hit him over the head and knock him out, and you're like, it's kind of hard to have the both, like,
Yeah.
you know, the same character being capable of both. But I do, as I've watched some more of the like the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, it seems, you know, like very much an aspect is you know, at times you power level up the main character, other times you make them weaker, just kind of depending on the situation and what story the author wants to tell.
I will say probably the most unrealistic was the tower scene, just because she had to fight through so much. And I think part of that feeling earned is you see her have to like recover for so long afterwards, you know? So you do see like full effects of that. And the adrenaline is just so high in the moment, you want her to keep going. It's not, again, it feels like the character has earned that, as well as like the story deserves this continuation.
I will say that has kind of capped off one of the things that I felt a little bit sad from this season, was that I feel like she didn't have a fair fight with Abijah Fowler. You know, he's kind of played as being like an expert swordsman, and he's like trained in weapons till he's bored. I was really hoping there would be, you know, an epic showdown, like on close to even footing between them.
Yeah. I
mean, they fought for a while until the town, until Tokyo started burning down.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But in that case, like, she was sort of pursuing him, right? I
it wasn't
don't
like a duel, like
It didn't feel
with
like
her
a
and
straight up
Taigen.
fair duel.
Yeah.
I think they established he's a better swords person than she is. Right?
How was she
Like,
winning in that fight?
didn't Taigen come in at the end and help? And then she told him to leave to go help Akemi. So it was like 2v1 for a minute, and then things were on fire.
It was a lot back and forth. The scales were tipping both ways the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, it was a fun fight, but you're right. It was not a straight up awesome duel where it seemed like anything could happen. Like there were certainly some restrictions placed upon the whole thing.
My understanding of the world building is a straight up 1v1 she would lose against him. But
do you guys think that,
which seems maybe a little unbelievable based on how many people we saw her take out? Like,
yeah, but
I think there's something
the
to
flower cut he did.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, yeah, it's like kind of earned, but at the same time, it was a little unbelievable the number of people that she was taking out, and I didn't feel like her training consisted of training in the practice yard for years. Like I don't feel like that's anything
I mean,
special compared to what other people are getting in terms of training. She's got
She
this
was
cool
watching all the
sword.
different forms of like, even like the ones
the
that
secret
dojos,
forms.
yeah, keep
Yeah.
secret.
Yeah. I
And
don't know. It didn't
I
really
took
seem like she had more opportunities than the other average Japanese person that wanted to be a samurai.
I took that as her like learning a lot of different techniques, and then the time after she left was her like perfecting it. It wasn't like that's all the training she had. Also, like I don't think anyone else was as dedicated as she was to
Yeah, I
like
think you're
gaining
supposed to
these
really get
skills.
behind the whole vengeance, maniacal drive that she has towards all
Like
of
she's
this.
like, I don't want to be happy in life. I just want to get my
Yeah,
revenge, and that's it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Let's go on to a different character. Let's talk about Taigen and or Akemi because they obviously kind of connect.
I really
Titan was
liked Taigen's character.
yeah. He's giving me major Zuko vibes
Hmm.
from Avatar.
I've seen enough Avatar to get that reference at least.
Yeah, he definitely does give Zuko vibes, and especially in the beginning where he's kind of using Akemi. He's very deceitful.
He's a
Um,
bully.
yeah, he bullied Mizu, and I guess he does seem to change a little bit too quickly, in my opinion, towards like becoming a little bit more honorable.
Mm.
And
I
so
think
maybe that aspect of his character I wasn't super happy about. Like
mm,
I think the great thing about Zuko's development in Avatar was that, it took place over 3 seasons.
yeah.
And there were a lot of times where he made the wrong decision. And so it's like he was kind of like progressing as a character, but he would have significant setbacks. And I mean, it's like just over 1 season, 8 episodes so far. Taigen has just like made a huge change as a character.
I don't see him as not being honorable to start. Like he would bully Mizu, but everyone like it wasn't so much as like, oh, he's a bully to her. Like everyone viewed her that way. But when she re-encounters him as an adult, like he was still an honorable person, but his honor and glory is like it's like more him focusing on obtaining glory and then realizing he doesn't need to, rather than being a good person so much.
Well,
Like I think he was
my
still like I don't think he was like using Akemi in the same way. I think he just realized now that he has been shamed, he'd have to go like reclaim that.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm more basing it off of the fact that with Akemi, he was playing like this, like humble person who is so excited to marry her. But then when she leaves and he was with like other members of his dojo, he was kind of like, oh, like let me put my arms around these other women and, like talk about
Yeah.
how I'm gonna marry this princess and be so great. It kind of seemed like somebody who was using Akemi, and Akemi was like,
Hmm.
giving up everything or like doing everything she could to marry him, whereas his love seemed disingenuous.
I just took that to be the sexism of the time. Not to
Like,
excuse it, but I didn't think it diminished his actual interest in Akemi. But
oh,
yeah.
yeah, I guess that could be. I'm applying, my modern lens to a
Yeah.
very, very sexist world.
I was applying my all men are pigs lens.
Mm.
So
I think honestly my favorite part of the whole season, I mean the fights were all awesome, but I tend to like character stuff more. And when Akemi and Taigen's arcs crossed, like on the bridge in episode 8, where all of a sudden she was the one that was focused on, the power, and he was the one wanting to kind of retire and live a happy life. Like I thought that was really cool and well done.
And there's lots of themes of like sexism and like racism and everything in the show, and I think it like causes an interesting discussion of like him being a man in that society. He can decide he wants to just like settle down, and like he can make that choice, but in order for her to like have a choice in her life, she has to go pursue this power. Does that make sense? Like, anyways, like she can't just choose to like settle down in a way she'd want to. Her choosing to not fight for power is being told what to do.
And that was kind of what her mentor,
Yeah.
Seko, something like that, was drilling into her over and over. I don't remember what his phrase was, but then, it kind of came along nicely by the end too, where he was like, I'm proud of you, go your own way.
Yeah.
And then tragically died.
I kind of had a different interpretation of Akemi at the end, and maybe mine was totally wrong, but I kind of thought her character was, becoming maybe a little bit more nefarious there at the end, because, her father had kind of caged her and like used her in order to accomplish his means of gaining power. But at the end, when the roles were reversed, she was willing to do the exact same things to him, where she was like, I think my father should be placed under my care. So I think she's hinting at the fact that she's going to be, using him the same way.
I think she is going to be using him. I saw that more as revenge, less that she's turning nefarious in general. But I could see her going down that path of like, in order to have control over my life, I have to be as ruthless as possible to everything.
It seems like a Daenerys Targaryen type path.
That's a good
yeah.
We will see how dark it goes.
What's the Ringo? Ringo's so great.
Yeah.
Such a pure soul.
Yeah, he adds, just enough levity to the show to really make it click.
He is a combination of Poe the panda and his noodle dream, and Podrick Payne from Game of Thrones with
his devotion.
Well, I was thinking with the prostitutes.
Yeah, there's that. There's that too.
I love as much levity as he does bring, and like just goodness. I loved when he like basically chastised Mizu after giving Akemi back to her father's guards. Like, you're no samurai, even though she told him like, I'm not a samurai, like I'm not trying to be whatever. Like, I love that he like chastised her in that way, because he was like trying to be like a samurai's aide or whatever, and realizing like she wasn't that for him. And I love how that like struck a chord in her, even though it didn't, like, I don't know, it was just done so well where it's like she was like, yeah, I'm not a samurai, I don't care. But then episodes later, she started to realize that she should care about that.
It struck a chord a little bit, to the point where you saw some cracks in her character, in her stone face, stone heart character. But at the end of the day, not enough to actually inspire any real meaningful change.
Well, I think it did by the end of the series.
Well, like, not in any like decision that you can point to, would you say?
Well, she decided to have help, and like
okay, okay.
Her
accepting help at least a little bit.
And her goal wasn't just revenge at the end; it was to also save Akemi and save the shogunate.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, but then at the very end, her going to London, I think you can argue whether that is regressing back to.
No, good point. Good point, that she did seem to be a little altruistic by the end, but still obviously serving her own purposes. So it's like I feel like there's enough change
to be realistic. Yeah, definitely enough change. And like at the end where Taigen had to convince her, no, you need to go after Fowler, even though she was like, wait, we have to help everything else that's going on. He's like, no, you still need to go after Fowler. So, whereas without that change, she wouldn't even need to be convinced of that. But,
So I have a question for Steven, my fellow romantic. Do
Yeah.
you think that Mizu and Taigen will end up with each other? I wasn't asking you, Jake. Don't shake your head.
There definitely are some hints, right? I feel like that was I feel like that more served to complement the backstory of Mizu's previous marriage that ended in a disaster. I don't see it. No, I don't see
You
that
don't see
happening
it
by the end.
happening?
No.
See,
I
I
don't think
think go ahead, Jake.
I could see it happening. I could see it. It's a possibility for sure. I think it's at this point like 50-50 on whether it will happen. I hope it doesn't. I think it's better storytelling if it doesn't.
Why is that?
It's like too
It doesn't
cliche,
like quite make sense.
and they don't really have, other than it being like, oh, we became friends, and like other than that, like what does he have to offer her? What does she have to offer him? Most of her character growth has happened through Ringo. Some of his character growth has happened through her. That's true. But like, I don't know.
What does he have to offer her? I think that he has to offer her somebody who grows to love her and see her for who she is, rather than, love or marrying her out of convenience and then loving her. But once he realizes like who she, like her her skill in combat, like rejects her like her last husband, he loves her for who she truly is, which I think she's searching for, that like acceptance and like almost a family.
But
and
also
what does
he doesn't even know she's a woman yet.
That's true. I mean,
So
that
that could completely, like, he respects her ability as a sword fighter now, but will he see that as something to respect when he finds out she's a woman, or will he be like as appalled as her husband
Will we
was?
have a Mulan situation or not?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
why she hasn't told him so far, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
yeah.
that it's bad. It's a bad story if they end up, or it would be worse for the story if they end up together.
I think
It
it'd be
could grow
better.
to that, I guess, but for now,
Yeah.
I don't. I don't see it.
I think
I could
him
see
getting back with the Kemi being better,
yeah, it could go that
like
way.
growing towards that.
I don't know. I can't. After one season, I don't really see a super happy romance in the cards for anyone. It seems like a darker story.
A lot of people are shipping Akemi and Mizu based off of that glance Mizu gives Akemi when she's like getting pulled into town.
That's what I thought at first too. I was like,
I thought they had some sort of history.
Which
but
team does Mizu bat for? And I guess the answer is maybe both of them.
Possibly.
We're low on time, but I want to
bad.
throw out one other thing. One thing that I didn't like as much, as we said, a lot of positives. I felt like the whole escalation of the conflict at the end, where all of a sudden Fowler was marching on Tokyo or Edo with this huge army that he kind of picked up. And like, I know that things were set up a little bit, but it just seemed like all of a sudden this dude is not only out of prison, but he's commanding the largest army in the area. They're taking Edo, which is defended by like 50 warriors, and I don't know, it just felt a little strange. Like it felt a little unbalanced. It wasn't quite the story that I thought we were going for.
Well, he got the shogunates like lower or lords or whatever to betray him, right? To betray the shogunate. And so like that's how I chalked up where he got the army and how he was able to like hide it, because they would have just assumed it was part of the shogunate's army.
Yeah, I think, it kind of makes sense, but I just feel it was escalated really quickly to the point where all of a sudden the story was not quite what I had envisioned for 6
Yeah.
or 7 episodes.
I agree. It accelerated really fast. I want to tell you about a story that happened to me this week in which I'm watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I'm like on episode like 13 or 14. I'm like, wow, I must be getting to the end of the first season.
There's no
And then I
seasons,
look at
man.
how many seasons and there's one season and it has
There's-
128 episodes. I'm like,
No, it has 54 or 64 episodes.
Yeah, it's
oh,
they listed
okay.
as dub
Sorry.
and sub.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It has 64 episodes.
Okay.
You're really
Okay,
close
so
to
a
the end,
lot-
Ryan.
That's
A lot better.
a lot. I mean, yeah, that is definitely better. But it could definitely use some brevity. So I think
Yeah.
they need to learn from each other a little bit. All right.
Well, again, it's just the source material of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is like a comic, you know,
Yeah,
an
that's
ongoing
true.
comic series. So it's much more serialized. But yeah.
I think my main issue, sorry, I got one more point on this thing, is I feel like the big point of all this was that Fowler has the guns, and the guns are great to neutralize, to give yourself a leg up if you're disadvantaged or you have a smaller army and you have a technology superiority, right? So when you've got the guns, but you've also got 3 times as many warriors, it just
People.
it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been cooler to storm in with 50 and take down a huge army, because all of a sudden they've got the guns. It's like, holy crap, this European dude with the technology, he's a big problem. But it's just like not quite there. Like it's mostly there, but it's just a little off.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't
my-
really think much
That's my
about it.
storytelling thing.
I think if you do think about it, there's probably some holes in the story there.
Anyway, any final words?
Really good show. Not for
Definitely
your mother-in-law's living room.
Yeah, not for your mother-in-law's living room. Definitely deserves all the hype it's getting, though, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I watched Daniel Green's like end of the year awards. I don't remember where it ended up. It was probably 2nd or 3rd in the best TV show. I'm pretty sure The Last of Us won that category,
It's
but
crazy that was
it was
the
up
same
there.
year.
It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if they can maintain that level of success in the second
Yeah.
season.
It came out of nowhere, and so like no one really had any expectations. I had heard about it from, I think, Jake at first, and then from another
Jake,
friend.
I heard about it from Jake first.
Yeah, way to
I
be a
heard about
trendsetter.
it in passing. Craig and Grant had watched it. I was like playing Baldur's Gate with them, and Craig was like, "I'm almost done with Blue Eye Samurai." Like, never heard of it before then. But it's amazing.
A true word of mouth grassroots movement here.
Very grassroots.
All right, thanks for tuning in. If you want to see more from us, you can check out our Discord, which is in the episode description, and our website, which has every other place that you would want to see Fantology stuff. See you guys later.
Peace.
Bye.